Good afternoon and good morning for some of you. Welcome to another Lockdown Live, and hopefully we're going to have some international listeners today. We are on day 25 or 26 of lockdown in South Africa, and I've done one of these shows every single day where I've talked to cool and interesting people from all over, all different walks of life. And today is no different. I'm going to be joined by a gentleman by the name of Pat Mcgowan from all the way from Canada. And how I got to know of Pat was back in beginning 2018. Pat contacted me via Facebook, and he is the founder of a platform called Blackbox. And we've been using Blackbox ever since for all our stock footage. Basically, I shoot stock footage and I upload it to Blackbox. And what Blackbox does is it distributes it to all the major platforms. And we'll have a quick chat about that and how Pat got involved with that and got onto the idea and all those kind of things. So yeah, Pat is quite a cool guy. And he's very involved with everything Blackbox and the huge community that's been built around it. So I think it's going to be an interesting chat. If you guys got any questions, we are not taking any technical questions regarding Blackbox. That you have to take up with Blackbox support. This is not a meeting or a chat about Blackbox and how it works and all that kind of things. And everything that's in the user guide, we're not going to touch on that. We are going to get behind the story and talk about trends and all those kind of cool things and leave the technicalities to the support teams and all that, because I can't help you with any of that. And if we've got to answer a lot of questions regarding that, it's just going to take away a lot of the time and the interesting message that Pat has got and that I would like to bring across to you guys. So, right. Good morning.
Hey, how are you?
All right, and yourself?
I'm very good. Is this all working? Are we live? What's up?
We are live. We're live. I'm just putting in the question section here that we're not taking any technical questions, like I've just said to them.
Okay.
Right. Okay, right, it's there. So, how are you, Mr. Mcgowan?
I am just great. We woke up to a nice blanket of snow today near Ottawa, Canada. So we're so excited. Not really.
Well, snow is like an everyday occurrence for you. Where here in South Africa, it's a big event if it happens that we can get close enough.
I'm sure it would be mayhem if we're to snow in South Africa.
Now we do get a little bit of snow in the winter on the higher peaks here in the Western Cape. And every now and again it snows low enough that you can actually get to it and play with it.
Cool.
And then everybody and their dog is up in the mountains playing in the snow and building snowmen. So it is a big event when it does happen. Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, we had a lot of snow here this year, and the spring has been delayed. I'm not sure why, but it's been pretty cool. And like I said, a little bit of snow. It'll be gone in 2 hours. It's not a big deal, but I wouldn't mind if it got a little bit warmer. That would be fine with me. Winters should be over by now.
Yeah. So how has the COVID-19 situation affected you guys in Canada at this stage?
Well, Canada, our Prime Minister and the government here decided to act as quickly as they could. Some people felt that it wasn't quickly enough, but overall, I think that so far, we'll count our blessings that it has not been a horrible event. Well, I don't know how to put this properly. It's a horrible event, but I don't think it's as severe as it would have been.
Okay.
And we don't seem to be going through some of the gyrations that are happening elsewhere. People in Canada are generally pretty compliant. I mean, we're like any other country. People have different opinions here, certainly, but to answer your question, it's probably as good as it can be, given the situation and given the threat and the challenge.
And what's your number of infections standing on at the moment? Or
Oh, dear. I think it's something in the 16,000 range. I could be wrong. Let me check. I'll have a quick look so I can give you an accurate number. Because I use the same tracker everybody else does, I'm sure. So let's see. And my browser is not working. I think it's something like, yeah, it's something like that. And the deaths, we've seen 1,600 only. So
Okay.
the number is low, but the distressing thing about that is I think half of them have been in long-term care homes for the elderly.
Yes.
So that's really scary stuff. My parents are elderly and they're living in one of those facilities and they've been locked down. So, we're only communicating electronically and, it's distressing to think that they could be,
Yeah.
locked down in an infection zone. So that's really rough, and I think that, I don't want to, I'm definitely not going to get political here. I'll try not to, but, when I hear that people are talking about, herd immunity and allowing the elderly to die and all that kind of stuff, I find that very difficult to reconcile, because
Yeah.
I have elderly parents and I'm certainly not going to support anything that would have them die. So, really rough stuff out there. People are way worse off than we are. I know that's true. I mean, I run a global community of content creators, so I have contact with a lot of people every day, and we know what's going on. What we are seeing is there are some heroes in our midst and heroines in our midst, and that's really wonderful to see. And in general, what are you going to do? I mean, you got to keep on keeping on. You've got to get up every morning and do your best to do the things that you do and to take care of your friends and family and community. And that's the important stuff as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, it's a really messy, oh my gosh, I mean, unprecedented. I'll use all the cliches, it's unprecedented. We don't know how to deal with this as a species. We don't know how to deal with it as a global society. We often don't know how to deal with it, within our own small communities. So, I don't have any answers on that at all. I have a science background, so I am much more interested in fact-based science than I am in political conjecture. If anybody is really geeky and wants to learn more about virology as it pertains to this pandemic, there's a wonderful podcast called Twill, TWIL.
Yeah.
Just Google Twill podcast. This is hardcore, heavy duty scientists talking to scientists in scientist language, very deep. But there are a lot of clues in there as to what's real and what's not real. So, I tend to be an evidence-based person. And, so I look to sources like that to, form the basis of my opinions. And, the bottom line here is that this virus doesn't care about politics. The virus doesn't care about borders. The virus doesn't care what religion you are. The virus will kill you no matter what. If you get it and you're susceptible and it affects you in that kind of way. So this is why this is so confusing, is because some people are asymptomatic. As we know, there's a long gestation period for these, or incubation period for this organism. It has different effects in different people. There could be a genetic component to that we don't understand yet. There's a lot happening, but when you go and, learn a little more about the actual science of this, the scientists are very, very clear on this. This is a natural event.
Yeah.
These things have happened before with varying degrees of intensity. There's features about our global society that make it nastier than the amount of air travel that we indulge in. Our concept of freedom is also a thing that is, that's a factor. I'm not going to say it's right or wrong. I believe in freedom just as much as any other North American does. However, folks are starting to talk about this being a free choice issue, whether or not they or their loved ones are infected. And I find that very hard to reconcile just based on the science. These guys on Twill, they were talking about the 1918 Spanish flu epidemic, but they're also talking about the antecedent organism, which reared its ugly head in, I believe, 1879. And there's documented evidence that there was a mutation. So, these viruses are around. There's H1,
N1
and N5 were two that affected bird populations and hopped. It happens. So, when people start getting all squirrely about non-evidence-based science information, that to me is a kind of a risky thing. But as I say, I'm evidence-based. Some people aren't. Some people believe what they believe, and you can't stop people from believing what they believe, but we've got to make sure that we take into account the human toll of our decisions. So again, I don't have the answers. I really don't. This is a big, complicated, horrible, gnarly situation. And we're going to have to put our heads down, and we're going to have to try to survive as a global society, as individual communities, and as individual people. That's really where we're at right now. We're at the mercy of this microorganism.
Exactly. Here in South Africa, it's still, the numbers are still relatively low. We've got just over 3,000 reported or documented infections, and just under 60 deaths at this stage, and just over 1,000 recoveries. But like one of the doctors or scientists or whatever he is in South Africa said yesterday, and I've also got the suspicion, is that for everyone that's documented as infected, there's 50 others that's not been documented, because South Africa is a rural country, lots of rural areas and high density populations that live like on top of each other in tin shacks, and I don't think any of those numbers has been taken into account. And those people
are there. That's the thing. Nobody knows really what is lying underneath the iceberg, or what part of the iceberg, or how big the iceberg is below the water, because it's not visible and it's not trackable. And in some cases, there are arguments out there that the testing is inadequate, that they're testing for the wrong things. There aren't enough tests, all of that. So they just can't define it. Just to answer your earlier question, though, Canada has 37,000 reported infections or cases, 1,700 deaths. So our deaths per 1 million of population are quite low, 45 per 1 million of population deaths, and 1,000 per 1 million of cases. When you look at the United States, it's 128 deaths per million and 2,300 cases. But the worst one out there is Spain, as you know, with 4,300 cases per million. That's roughly double what the US is experiencing, and 455 deaths per million. And they're arguably 2 to 4 weeks further into it and still reporting new cases. So, when you look at the numbers, and as you say, size of country and distance between people in the country when you go into the rural areas probably has an effect. I live in a rural area, and there is a lot of distance between me and my neighbors. And in fact, when my wife and I just walk the dog every day, we encounter people, And it's kind of interesting. We know our neighbors better now than we did, a month ago. It's actually kind of cool. And so there's a stronger sense of community, I think, and people want to, speak to each other and know each other. So that's kind of comforting in a way, but we don't encounter very many people when we're on the road, walking our dog. And, I think we're safe. I don't know.
Yeah, nobody knows.
I don't know if my wife is safe. We have to go get provisions once every 2 weeks, and we observe lots of, we're very careful. Again, I'm evidence-based, so I wear a mask, I wear gloves, I use bleach wipes. I take care of it all because, basically our little garage area I've turned into it looks like a bit of a surgery table where I got, one side marked off with tape, where the non-clean stuff goes or unverified. And it's like scrubbing for surgery as far as I'm concerned. These viruses are nasty. So but when we go to the grocery store, it's a smaller community of maybe 10,000 people where we do our shopping. And we're the only people with the masks and the gloves on. And people look at us like we have two heads. It doesn't make sense to me, but people feel that they don't need to take those precautions, which in fact, for me, makes it more of a risk factor. So, but there are other people out there who are, promoting this idea of herd mentality or herd immunity, and saying, okay, let the weak die, and the rest of people who are mildly infected will develop immunity, and this will all be over. Personally, I don't subscribe to that, and none of the virologists that I listen to on podcasts like 12, which is a verified group of people, would hold that view. So, here's the bad news. We're looking at a long time before we have any kind of semblance of biosecurity with regards to this organism. That's just the way it's going to be. And again, I'm not speaking as a business owner here or as a politician. This is my personal opinion, and people are entitled to have their opinions as long as they don't make me and my family unsafe. That's basically the way I look at it.
All right. I think enough of the negative stuff. Let's
talk about some fun stuff.
The positive thing. So I think, I know, Pat, you've got a very big community of creators that you have drawn together over the last 3-4 years, and that is actually really amazing. But just curious, one of the questions I've got for you is, where do you come from? What's your background? Where did you grow up? And what did you want to be when you were 12 years old? That kind of thing. What's that story behind?
Wow. So cool. Well, I hope I'm coming through okay, because my internet connection can be a little unstable here.
Your voice is, the image lags a little bit, but the voice is fine. Okay,
super. So I grew up in a family in Western Canada. My father was a large animal veterinarian. And he was also a wildlife guy. So he was involved with not only the cows and the horses and the pigs and the sheep, he was also involved with large African animals and other large animals because there was a guy named Al Oming that had a nature preserve near our town. So we have a story where, Al brought one of his cheetahs over and it was eating from a bowl on the floor, and my brother was down there beside it, eating out of a bowl. So kind of a cool story. And that was back in the 60s. So I was exposed to science and wildlife and real life on the farm at a very early age. And I was really lucky to have that early experience. So we ended up moving to the city across the country, and Canada's a huge country. So, it would take 3 days to drive here from where we lived in Alberta. It's a massive country. So my dad ended up becoming a bureaucrat, and he had a really interesting career. He was Gorbachev's colleague, actually. They were both high up in Gorbachev was the minister. My dad was an assistant deputy minister. And my dad did the early trips to Russia to try to open up trade relations under our first Trudeau Prime Minister, Pierre Elliott, who made those initiatives. My dad did some stuff in China, and actually a lot of what he did in China was the veterinary epidemiological stuff that allowed China to get into chicken farming on a larger scale. So my dad knows a lot about what's going on with these viruses. So he's dealt with outbreaks, and I've been party to that. So, it's kind of an interesting parallel to what's going on in the world today. So I was very lucky. I got a really varied upbringing. No one has, I didn't have an easy upbringing. There was lots of stuff going on. 4 brothers and sisters. My dad was a very hardworking guy and provided for his family. And my mom was the classic, 1950s, 60s housewife, but she was also into natural foods way before anyone even thought of it. So we learned a lot growing up. My parents were really smart, so that was great. I got a little bit of their brains, I think, but they're really smart people. So, but what happened is my 2 brothers and I all became musicians. So we went down this path of the arts very early in school and showed, enough talent to do it. And so we all ended up becoming musicians. One of my brothers is a classical musician, and he doesn't do it full time, but he could have. And my older brother was a frontman for a pop band, and I ended up going down that route. So I ended up in the music business, tried my hand at biology at the University of Toronto, and left to join a band. And I never looked back after that. And I did a little more training in psychology. So I've got a really varied and eclectic background. But really I'll never forget the day I was 19 years old, and I had this friend who had this band, and he wanted to do like a full-on studio recording. And in those days, you didn't record at home because you couldn't. It wasn't like today where you got, you get a preamp and you hook it up through Ableton on your MacBook Pro, and you've got yourself a digital studio. It wasn't like that at all. So you had to, and there was no sequencing, there was no auto tune. You couldn't use a digital audio workstation to manipulate. You had to cut it live from the floor to tape, and you had to get it right, and then you would mix it and embellish, but you had to play. So the first time I did a studio session, it was at this place called Kensington Sound in Toronto. It was above a fish market in the Kensington Market area, and those of you from Toronto will know exactly what I'm talking about. And I walked into the control room, and I just felt like I was home. It was a very powerful experience, and I was 19 at the time. And that was it for me. I mean, I couldn't do anything else after that. I was infected with the bug of being a creator. So I worked my entire life to make a living as a creator in a whole bunch of different roles. The first was as a musician, as a playing musician and doing some studio work. But frankly, I wasn't good enough to get to the big leagues. We had a minor record deal at one point, and I had a couple of close calls with success. And then I met my wife, who was the real deal. I mean, mega talent, beautiful woman inside and out, and an incredible musical talent. And so we got a band together, and we went down that path. And we ended up, having a family, and I kind of had to go legit. So what I did is a friend of mine asked me to score a corporate video that he was making, because in those days, people would actually write or approach you to write music for corporate stuff, because there was stock music just wasn't a thing. Yeah. So I started with that. I fell in love with that. I fell in love with audio post. I became an audio post engineer. I'm the first guy in Canada to do anything dig. So I had this unit called a Soundstation 2 out of the UK, which was probably the best piece of equipment I've ever owned. It was absolutely incredible. It was a small refrigerator sized computer. It was a mini computer with a great big touchscreen console on it. It was incredible. I mean, just technology, probably the best technology I've ever used. And that was, oh gosh, I mean, that was 30 years ago. So that led me, after 3 or 4 years of doing that, I'd kind of outgrown the market here in our town, and I felt I had. And so I went and tried to get a job in LA, and I landed a gig at Paramount on the mix stage for feature films. And I came home and told my wife, and she said, "Not on your life. We're not going to LA. I'm not raising my kids in LA. So if you want to go do that, you go ahead." So I decided to stay, and I switched to picture. Now, when I was a kid, I'd already really had an interest in photography, and I did some black and white photography training and darkroom and all that stuff. So, I knew I loved images as well. And I switched to video. Now, this was back in the days when we were cutting, cutting an ABC roll suites, Betacam SP to 1 inch, and huge switchers, all kinds of very expensive equipment to do video editing. But it was right around the time in the mid 90s when we started to see a glimmer of Avid coming into the market, and Montage, Video Toaster, other editing, digital editing platforms, or machines, I guess, software and hardware. And I got interested in that. So moved into that, bought a small production company from a couple that was retiring that had a pretty good book of business. Went through the gyrations, and that was in 96. So 24 years ago, I bought a production company, and I morphed that into another company called InMotion, and we grew InMotion to the point where we had around 40 or 50 full-time employees and many contractors working for us. We had a little studio. We had almost 20 camera systems in our garage, bunch of edit suites, lots and lots of computers, lots of people. And so during all of this, and I'm going to take you into the next phase, but during all of this, I probably experienced, I'm going to say, 6 or 7 major disruptions. So they could have been a tech shift, they could have been a market shift, they could have been, we live in Ottawa, which is the capital of Canada, so there's a lot of government contracting, and the government was making a lot of high-end video. But if you got a government change, you went from, a liberal to a conservative government, and the conservatives always like to chop budgets that the liberals had put in place. So you would have a dry couple of years. So I know disruption as well as anybody. Or it could have been SARS in Toronto, killed a lot of business for a long time because conference work ended, business travel ended, a lot of sales and marketing stopped. So we were out of work more than once. When Nortel, which was a huge Canadian company, went bankrupt, the Toronto Stock Exchange tanked. There was a mini recession in Canada as a direct result of that. What else? SARS, the financial crisis of 2008, brutal. 9/11, brutal. When I was just moving into a new studio on the day that 9/11 happened, and me and a bunch of our guys, we were tacking down plywood floors in the new studio. And we went for breakfast at the local restaurant and watched the second plane go in. And I just said to myself, here we go. And this was, we were expanding. We were putting a lot of money and energy into changing our business model. And, I was always a very ambitious entrepreneur. I always wanted to do more. I always wanted to be involved in better content and with, higher level opportunities. And I suppose I'm no different now, but the disruptions that I've been through were profound. And the last real disruption that I went through was in 2014, 2015. And it was as a direct result of streaming platforms hitting the market. So And the reason that that happened is because in Canada there is a system of subsidies. It's no different. The subsidies are still there. They're called tax credits, but there's also another thing called the Canadian Production Fund. And cable companies who were broadcasting Canadian television shows were bound to give a certain amount of their revenue to this fund so that new productions could be mounted up. And it became part of the financing formula for Canadian TV. Well, as soon as people started cutting the cord and going to streaming platforms, and this happened in 2013 through 2016, and then it really caught fire. But this meant that there was less production going on in Canada. And at that time, we were entering that market for specialty TV, cable, and we had a whole bunch of deals canceled, just canceled. Boom, phone call from the network, over, no recourse. And, you know, it was unbelievable. And at that point, I went into my boardroom and I asked myself, why? Why keep going with this business model? Why continue with this gig and contract life that was prone to these types of disruptions that were completely beyond our control? So, and nobody could see it. I mean, you're talking perfect storm stuff, right? So when you hit a perfect storm, and in fact, that year was a perfect storm. So streaming hit the Canadian market and every other market, but it had a kind of an interesting effect here because it really affected financing for television, for producers. The second thing that happened that year was, let me just think. Yes, we had a change in government. So we got a conservative majority, and the prime minister, in his wisdom, and it always kind of amazed me that this is a conservative who's supposed to be in support of small business, but what he does, or what he did, is he internalized all government communications and hired internally to do the work that the private sector had been doing for years. So again, I'm not political, really. I mean, I have some political views. I tend to be in the center. You know, I call myself a left-leaning conservative, but you know, I just live in the middle. I'm a business guy. And so when a government makes a decision that impacts so many businesses in such a brazen and obviously political manner, yeah, I have a political opinion about that. I don't really think that that's something that the government should be doing. And the reason they did it was so they could control the message, right? Which is fairly typical. And we're seeing a lot of that these days. Don't want to name names, but holy smokes, you know, propaganda has probably never had a more significant presence in our daily lives as it does right now. So we need to be very careful. At any rate, so that's the second part, is we had a major disruption with a major client, because the government of Canada was a major client. And we lost 90% of our government business over the next year. It was not really survivable. And then the third thing that happened, and nobody should take me wrong on this, but young people in the industry, let's call them millennials, although they're not all millennials, and that's not a tag that I use loosely because I love all these guys. But we were training them better at the college and university level, and they were equipped better coming out because they could buy a decent SLR or a DSLR, and they could buy a MacBook Pro, and they could get Premiere Pro going, or FCP, or whatever they were doing, or Resolve, and they could do really good work. So it used to be the domain of production companies that had the systems, that had the contacts with the customers. So what we saw was a shift in the client behavior where a lot of decisions were being made also by millennials. And so they were in a social network where the work started to move sideways. So I just made a decision. I sat in my boardroom and I said, I can't do this business model anymore. I've done it for a long time and I loved it. And I had a great career. I mean, I really did. And I raised my kids, and I didn't get rich, but that wasn't my game anyways. I don't want to be rich, quite frankly. It's not why I do what I do. So I'm looking for other things in my life. So anyways, just trying to wrap this up because I know I'm going on forever, but you know, at that point I said, I think I want to do something different. And I think I want to get back to some philosophies that I had early on in my career. And, you know, all of my best experiences that I've had as a media creator have been working with other creators. So the collaboration part, the teamwork part, the common purpose, the complementary skill sets, the strengths and weaknesses being married together to make better stuff. You know, that's the most rewarding part, has been the most rewarding part for me. And it actually goes back to my days in the music business. Playing in a band is a wonderful thing when you've got the right group of people. You know, there's lots of horror stories about ego battles and all that, but that's just human nature. So I sat in my boardroom and I said, what if? What if? And if you watch our explainer video on our website, that's my script. I wrote that script and I voiced it. You know, whether it's good or not, but we talk about some core stuff there. And the real core for me is freedom. Creators need to have freedom. They need to be unconstrained as possible, as unconstrained as possible. They need to be able to work with each other freely with as few boundaries as possible. And we do have some boundaries that are necessary in order for our model to work. So don't go think this is a free-for-all, it's not. But what we do is I just sat in my boardroom and I wanted to design an ecosystem where I would be happy, where I would be happy to work in that ecosystem. And that's the genesis of Blackbox.
Oh, fantastic. No, it's an amazing platform, and just over the last 2 years that I've been using it, it has evolved quite a bit, and it's definitely grown hugely since when I came on. I know you did that video with Chris, how that completely blew up your systems.
Yeah, that was an interesting time.
Yeah, tell me about when that happened. When you woke up that morning after the video aired and you saw all the stuff that came in, what did you say to yourself or to your team or whatever?
Well, I mean, basically I said, oh shit, you know, we've got ourselves a tiger by the tail here and we've got to rein this in as soon as we possibly can. So, you know, in addition to all of my career life as a creator, I'm also a manager. So, you know, my specialty was operations management, putting together teams and systems. I've done some very ambitious projects and led them from an operational perspective. So I was right in my wheelhouse when this happened, to act decisively, to take steps immediately. The first thing you do is communicate. Number one, you need to communicate with people honestly and transparently. Let's just say, but you know, transparency is a really abused term. Transparency doesn't mean you open up every single piece of information about your business to every single person. That's simply not workable, and it shouldn't be expected. We need to work on a platform or on a basis of trust, that we put our business out there with intent, and our intent is creator freedom, period. Those are the two most important words in my vocabulary, and everything that we do is around that. So when Chris Chris and I met in February of 2018, and at that point, Blackbox was pretty much experimental. So we were out there with what they call a minimum viable product. It worked. We had, I think, 1,200 members at that time, maybe a few less, maybe more, but not very many. And it was early adopter time. So, and we didn't have that many active members, but those that we did have were really enthusiastic, because we brought a business model that allows collaboration, it allows co-ownership of content, and it allows sharing of revenue streams. So that's really critical stuff. anyways, we built a platform. It worked. It tested beautifully, and we were ready to go to a wider market. And we expected, to go to 3,000 users, or maybe 5 would be great. And by the end of the year, 10. Well, on June 1st, 2018, when Chris dropped that video on his YouTube channel, we proceeded on a growth track that took us to 35,000 members by October. And the initial rush was overwhelming. And you were there, right? Were you involved at that time?
I signed up to Blackbox in, I think it was March of 2018.
Oh boy, so you were there, yeah, okay.
And by May 2018, we had our whole portfolio up until that stage moved over to Blackbox in complete. So I remember I still said to you, thank goodness we got on board right before this thing happened, because I stood way back in the queue with all the rest of them.
Well, you know what? We got through it, and if I recall correctly, it didn't take that long for us to clear the backlogs.
Yeah.
But there were, there were some things that we could have done differently, and life is a learning experience. No one had done this kind of thing before. We were very early to market conceptually and from a business perspective. And but we just kept our hat on, and we kept our heads straight, and we said, look, what's the goal here? The goal here is to make sure that creators have better lives. So every decision that we make is about that, because if we're not offering that, then we don't have a platform, and we don't have a community, and we don't have a business, because the goal is that creators will get value and benefit and have better lives and be able to change the way they are as creators. Do you mind if I dive into that for a minute?
Yeah,
is that cool?
So,
yeah, I mean, like, here's the thing. When I became a creator, my intent was not to be a contract worker. Okay, like, that was great to get paid. And when you first make the transition and when you first realize you can get paid by doing these things that you love to do, that really turn you on, that's a wonderful thing. But how do you keep it going? How do you make it sustainable? How do you, when you get older, how do you buy a car and a house and groceries? And how do you take care of your family and take your kids skiing or whatever they want to do, or music lessons? And, you have to have a sustainable reality in order to do that, especially if you're a breadwinner. Yeah. And so here's the thing. In 1989, when I opened my first audio post suite, we charged $600 a day, and we had $300,000 worth of equipment, and we had 2,000 square feet of rent to pay on $600 a day rate. So we had to be busy to make those numbers, right? When you just add it up, the costs of running the business were challenging. So what did you have to do? You had to be really good. Like, you had to deliver, you had to be good, you couldn't be a screw up. Your equipment had to be working, clients were coming in, they were on deadline, it had to go right. That's all there was to it. Well, today, audio post, a lot of it is still being done in big rooms, for sure, but the rates haven't changed that much. If you're doing home-based audio post, the going rate right now in Canada, I'm just talking about Canadian rates, and they're different elsewhere for sure. But so in Canada, my rate was $600 a day. Today, 31 years later, okay, think about that. 31 years later, the rate is $450 a day.
Okay.
31 years later, the rate is $150 a day less. Now, you don't need $300,000 worth of gear, and you don't need 2,000 square feet, okay? But there are people that want to work with higher end gear, that want to work with, and they want to offer that, so they got to up their rate, which is a hard sell depending on your client base. So you're gigging, okay? It's contract work, it's a business to business relationship. You're in a value chain, you're in a supply and production chain. And where is the content going? Well, for most of my career, the content was going to TV stations, ad agencies, government departments, and film producers who were going to distribution. And it could have been straight to cable, or it was theatrical, or it was straight to DVD in a lot of cases back in the day. So now we've got this environment where content is being aggregated to streaming platforms. And there are, until this year, there was only one or two. Now I think at last count, we got 17, and there's more coming. So there's massive fragmentation happening. So what happens to the supply base in that scenario? Yes, demand is high. Okay, great, demand is high. But what happens to the demand? What happens to the supply scenario? And it kind of defies logic. Well, what's happening is prices are going down, and it's being couched in a different modality. It's not so much contract work anymore. It's transfer of ownership of the copyrights to large companies as payment, and then they pay their downline. So my attitude is very clear on this, that's not, like, you can do what you love within that scenario, but you're not really free, okay? There's not a lot of upward mobility on rate. You're not going to make more money in 10 years. I can absolutely guarantee that. You're probably going to make less in 10 years. So what we've seen is what I call the commodification of labor in that scenario. And the real reason that commodification is happening is because ownership of content is being moved to the pinnacle or the apex of these large, many of them publicly traded companies. So our industry has changed in an absolutely massive and fundamental and very profound way just in the past 5 years. Okay?
And those streaming companies you're talking about as companies like Netflix and Amazon Prime and the likes of those?
There are a lot of, I don't want to get into necessarily, the brands that are out there. We all know that Netflix is the market leader. Yeah, but Netflix is a publicly traded company, and that brings a different flavor. Okay, so Netflix exists for shareholder value, period. That's all there is to it. So Netflix will tolerate creator value as long as it serves shareholder value. Let's be very clear about that. That wasn't necessarily the case in the industry. There were, and sorry, I'm just going to backtrack. The domination of these types of companies is unprecedented. Okay, so there's a less diverse ecosystem out there. And you've got the big Tyrannosaurus Rex running the jungle, right? And now there are more of them. And I'm not ringing an alarmist bell here. We need to look at this from a business perspective. So there's no hating going on. There's no, this is wrong. It's not wrong or right. It just is, okay? So the decision that creators should be able to make, and again, this is within the realm of the theoretical to some degree. Creators should be able to make a decision to indulge in a business model where they get paid a gig fee and walk away from their content, or they make the content, they retain ownership, and they tap long tail royalty streams. Okay, so Blackbox is all about the latter. Blackbox is about collaboration on spec, no gig fee, okay? You know that, you don't get paid, right? Until you get paid. So there's no gig fee, but you retain ownership of your piece of the content. And you do that through collaborating with others, which, what does that do? It drops your risk.
Yes.
So you don't have to DIY on our platform. You can share the work and share the risk, but also up the game, because collaboration makes better content. I'll say that to the day I die. Okay, there are people out there that are lone wolves that are more comfortable doing it all themselves, and hey, more power to them. That's totally fine. But I believe that when we're going to get into higher order content that's more complex, you can't DIY it. You can't DIY a feature film, but you will be able to make a feature film with collaborators on Blackbox very soon.
Okay.
You will be able to make YouTube shows, content on Blackbox now. You can do that now. We started in the stock footage thing. It was really just the first thing that we did, right? Test market, let's call it that. But it's more than that because it's actually a very robust business. I mean, we've got people getting paid every month from the royalties from their stock footage in a time when all of their gigs have dried up. I think that's a very, very powerful thing. You know, I'm really proud that we are able to do that. That makes me feel really, really good. And it makes me feel that we are justified in our approach and that we should do more. Because what happens the next time there's a big disruption and all the work dries up, right? And we're all living in these regional markets that all have their problems and issues and their cycles. But in terms of long form and even short form, we are seeing a consolidation of content at a global level within few companies, and they're all shareholder driven, okay? And then the other part of that is that there's narrowing money for the creators themselves because there are more people coming into the market. So supply and demand are both growing. If it was just demand that was growing and supply was static, there would be more money for supply. This is economic. This is like first economics class, high school level economics. Like high demand, low supply, higher prices. Simple stuff, right? But what we've got is rising demand and rising supply because more kids are hopping into this as a vocation. And that's awesome. Like, I think that's great. So what's going to make the difference? Well, you know me, you know what I say. What am I going to say? What makes the difference?
What makes the difference?
To me, what makes the difference to me? What's the one factor that we have been talking about a lot on the platform?
Is to work together and quality.
Quality. Okay. I just watched a movie on Netflix last night with my wife. Okay. Production value was fine, no problem. But it was the worst piece of garbage I think I've ever watched. And it was just junk, you know. And the only reason I watched it is because we're running out of things to watch on Netflix because they're out of production. Okay. But there are like thousands and thousands and thousands of people all around the world that are in Netflix's supply chain that are not working today. They're not working. They got cut off. I mean, it's a calamity. It's like a volcanic eruption in our industry. So my take is, if you want to experience more freedom, if you think you're the right kind of person to do it, and you only have to be like that much entrepreneurial, because we did that part of the entrepreneurial. We packaged this into a platform and a service that allows you to avoid a lot of the stuff that an entrepreneur would have to do. And not everybody's entrepreneurial. So, you know, most people that I know in the industry are not really entrepreneurial. They want to do their gig. They want to be paid fairly. They want to do good work, and they want to go home. Well, so, and I'm not pitching here. I'm just trying to put the concept across. I mean, maybe I'm pitching a little bit, but because I'm always pitching. I'm an entrepreneur. But so what we do is we say, okay, look, take your time that is not being put against other things right now, if you have any. Take your equipment that is sitting on the shelf waiting for a client to call. Okay? Work with other people that are in a similar situation. Make some awesome content, as good as you possibly can. Okay? We'll take it out to our market partners or our YouTube channels or our Facebook pages that we're building right now. And you will get your share of the money when it comes. And that gets paid out through PayPal once a month. So, you know, our job is to make sure that we have the community, the platform, the market contacts, okay, the ability to distribute, and the process to make sure that those payments are calculated properly. And that's what we have. So we built that. And now we're moving into other stuff, because when I designed this ecosystem, it wasn't a multi-uploader. That's not what we are. There are multi-uploaders out there that you can use, and they may cost you less money. I don't know. We think that there's lots of room for different approaches in the market, and there's a lot of tolerance for different things amongst the creator community, and that's freedom. I mean, we're not trying to sell you anything you don't want. We're looking to build a community of like-minded people that treasure collaboration, quality, and fair pay. And there's nothing more pure than a revenue share, because I'll give you an example. I mean, I learned this personally. I do wildlife work, and some of my wildlife work is fairly unique. And I had a choice, because I have to do this work. I'm driven to do it because, as I said, when I was a kid, my dad was a veterinarian. We were wildlife people. I wanted to be a wildlife biologist when I was 12 years old, by the way, to answer that first question. That was my path. And I'm deeply committed to wildlife. I'm deeply committed to nature, and I do some really cool shit out there in the wilds of Canada and Alaska. And I'll do it globally as well once I have the opportunity. Yeah. So anyways, I went out and did a shoot in 2012. Okay, we're talking 8 years ago. And I was very fortunate that a colleague of mine invited me on this trip. And we encountered some polar bears, and I captured some really awesome footage. Now, if I'd been on a Nat Geo gig, which I wouldn't have been because I'm not on their roster, a BBC, CBC, anybody like that, the going rate at the time with gear was, depending on who you were, $1,500 a day was probably pretty standard, maybe $2,000. So I had a total of 6 days in. So what I would have gotten a maximum of $12,000 to do the job and hand over the content to the client. Here's your hard drive. Bye-bye. Thank you for the money. See ya.
Yes.
Well, in the 8 years since I did that work, I have made a lot more money than that. Okay, I'm not going to give a specific number, but it's more than 5 times as much.
On those particular shots that you got on that trip?
On that time. So if I was trading time for money, I would get 12 grand. If I trade my talent, effort, skills, abilities, gear, all of that value for content ownership and market return, it's much better.
Yeah.
Is it the same for everything? No, of course not. If you go out and shoot beach footage with a drone, well, everybody's shooting beach footage with a drone. That's all there is out there right now. Some of it's better crafted, but again, it comes down to, why is that clip valuable in the stock footage context? Why is that clip valuable? Why is a YouTube video valuable to somebody? Most of the people that I know who have been successful on YouTube took years to refine their offering. Years. Yeah. This stuff doesn't happen. And here's another thing, guys. There is no such thing as an overnight success.
Yeah, get rich quick. It doesn't work.
They don't exist. It takes years to develop your craft. It takes years to develop your talent. The music business was the classic example. There are so many talented people that will never see the light of day. Why? Because they didn't hit at the right time. They got the wrong song at the wrong time. Whatever. It's oversaturated. Who knows, right? So it's the same in video, right? I mean, you basically just have to commit to your craft. I mean, it's the same as any other art form. Being a Broadway actress, if you're an understudy and the lead player doesn't get sick, you're not going to get seen. You're an understudy. You might get the odd matinee, but that's all you're going to get, right? Unless that other person can't do the gig, and then the understudy may get attention, right? So it's the same in our industry. It's really no different. There's no magic pill. There's no guarantees. But what I do know, again, and we'll harp on it, is that quality and collaboration and an honest effort are the things that you need to do in order to be successful in this business. And as I said, you don't need to be an entrepreneur anymore if you use our platform. We take care of all the entrepreneurial stuff for you. If you are an entrepreneur and you don't want to use our platform, I to say about that. That's really cool. But if you are, if you want to use the tools that we put together, what we're doing is we started slow. We followed our own advice. It was a multi-year plan, right? Because a lot of the things that I designed into this ecosystem have not been put into it yet. And this is the year where we start to put in much more advanced tools. They're already built. We're ready to go to market. So that's happening soon. Much more advanced tools, different market gateways, and other stuff that creators are going to want and need in order to be free, really, because that's what it comes down to. So am I anti-gig or anti-contract? Of course not. I'm anti-devaluing the commodity of labor in our industry. That I don't like. So here's another really cool thing. If you can build up your passive income reliably to the point where you can turn down shitty gigs, that's a huge benefit. Because now you can only take the paying gigs that you find valuable, either financially or creatively or networking wise or career building or whatever your goals are. But you don't have to take the crappy offer.
Yeah.
And you don't have to take the risky job.
Yeah. What I've also done, and because at this stage the stock money is still a passive income, yet there's no such thing as a passive income. You need to keep working at it. And what I've said to other people is I've been on jobs that I've done for clients where I've shot stock footage in between. I was there to shoot stills, for instance, and I've used this example with other people as well. As I had to shoot at a wine farm one day, and while I was laying down and shooting in the rows of the vineyards, the irrigation system was going and the drippers were running down the pipe and dripping.
Oh, so cool.
And that single, it took me 15 seconds I switched my camera over to video. I shot that. I didn't even use a tripod or nothing. I focused it, shot for 15 or 20 seconds and carried on with my shoot that I had to do. And that video clip has probably brought in about $200-300 over the last year. So
okay, so that works out to $12,000 a minute, approximately of your time.
Yes.
Right. So yeah, that's the power of content. Great content has a long life. Average stuff, not so much. And one of the big things that we are really working on now, because we learned this again, we see what sells, we know what's moving, and we can't prescribe like content topics because they're so varied and unpredictable. But what we do know is that finely crafted content sells way better than run and gun shaky cam stuff. It just is. I look at the clips every day. I see the sales every day. I guarantee you, finely crafted content is what's selling for Blackbox.
But if you are somebody that's busy gigging for clients, look for these opportunities to get stuff like that dripper. Who else would have thought that is a clip that could make you that is something that you could shoot that could possibly sell and make you money over a certain amount of time. And how many people are there in the world looking for that kind of footage for any sort of agricultural application, water saving, marketing for whatever the story is.
Yep.
And nobody else has got that clip, but my clip is on there and it's unique and it's what they want. So what I'm saying is that while you're gigging for other clients, look for what there is, not to take away from what you're giving them, but what you can use to build a second income on the side. And then once you've got money coming in, you can start setting up dedicated stock shoots.
Yep. Well, so here, there's two things that I hear there. Number one is the creator's eye. Okay, so you're in a certain situation and something catches your eye and you capture it because you're a professional. Yes. Right? So it's the creator's eye. It's like, I have to stop the car right now because look what I just saw, and I'm going to do this right. Yes. I'm not going to whip out my iPhone and do this. I'm going to get my tripod out of the trunk or the boot. I'm going to take my time and I'm going to set this up and I'm going to capture this properly, you know, and that's really what we want to see people doing. So, and we're not going to take second best. Our standards have to be higher. That's really going to get us somewhere. I know it because the commodity is becoming less valued and highly commodified. That's just what's happening in the market. But quality sells. Quality sells. That's all there is to it. But the other thing I wanted to point out to you is when you are on a gig for a client and you're in a specialty location, the etiquette is to let the client know how great it would be if you could capture some footage for your own purposes. Would that be okay? But, so if they say no, you have, with Blackbox, you have the option of bringing them in as a sharer, okay? So you can say to that farmer, I'm going to give you 10, 15, 20% of the revenue from this footage. You just have to sign up for this service, and that money will come to you automatically. So, because here's the thing, this really touches on an important point. There are many aspects to making content. Okay, so you've got location, talent, you've got the gear, you've got the camera operator, you might have a producer, you might have a fixer, you might have to have a vehicle, you know, whatever. Those are all a studio. Those are all things that can be captured in our sharing program rather than having to pay for them. So if you know someone that has you want to do a green screen shoot, you know, someone in your ecosystem that has a green screen studio, it's not booked on Saturday afternoon, you can approach them and say, I want to do a shoot there. We're probably going to get, I don't know, 50 to 100 clips out of it. You can own a portion of it in return for us using your studio. Okay. And some people will say yes, some people will say no. But I guarantee you the first time they get a payment, they're all in. And they will call you back and say, when would you like to use the studio again? You know, and we see this with, like, especially now because there's so much downtime, people are looking for ways to survive. I mean, basically. And so,
even you know, if you haven't got the gear, I'm pretty sure you can do the exact same arrangements with a rental company. Like I know there's one of the guys here in Cape Town. He's a one-man show, and he owns a ton of gear. I'm talking, last time I heard it's something in the excess of 45 D Mark III bodies that he rents out to the industry. I'm pretty sure if you go to somebody like that and say to them, right, rent me the gear, rent me proper stuff for this. I'm going to the Kalahari for 3 weeks. I want decent gear, but then we do a profit split on that. I'm pretty sure there might be the companies that come in like that as well.
Well, the thing that some people don't understand about Blackbox is that we're not a revenue share company. We're a content co-ownership company. So the copyright is shared. That's a revolutionary part of our platform. So you're not offering a revenue split, you're offering co-ownership of content, and it's in the terms and conditions. So that's something that's super, super important, because if you got hit by a truck next week, okay, your copyright is transferable to your heirs. Yes. Because you own that copyright. So if he were to co-own the copyright and you got some $1 million stuff, he owns it with you. You guys are partners. So this is a lot deeper than people, you know, understand at first blush. This is a partnership platform. And we form partnerships at the content level, not at the, I'm going to be your partner for life, because I don't want to be your partner for life. Yes. I want to be your partner for this 3-day shoot. Great, you're my partner because we co-own the content. And that's the revolutionary part of this business model. And that's how we're going to change the world for creators. Because overall, creators will have more value and more freedom if they look at it that way. I'm living proof. I'm happier than I've ever been in my life right now because I don't have to do all the stuff that I used to have to do to get a gig, to do a gig, and to survive financially through a gig.
Yes.
I don't have to do that stuff anymore. It's the best.
You were saying?
I'm sorry, our signal got lost. Where do you want me to pick up?
No worries. I've got a question that we spoke about briefly before we went live, is that you were going to say what kind of trends the people are looking for at the moment. And I presume that the whole COVID-19 thing is big up there, but not everybody's got access to shoot medical kind of stuff and all that. So what is there that people can look for to shoot? And like I said earlier, I think anything can be stock footage as long as it's good quality.
Well, okay, so that's a complex question. And again, we're not trend predictors because my experience tells me that when the trend reveals, it's gone. There's another one coming. Honestly, you can't make those determinations. We are seeing some medical stuff selling, but it's not dominant right now. We're seeing a lot of, it's the same stuff that always sells, right? High level, nature, people, industry, technology, agriculture, commerce, people, emotion, children, babies. I'm just thinking off the top of my head what I've seen go through in the past day or so. And, unique stuff, well crafted. Again, it just has to be good, but it just can't all be the same good. Like you can't put 19 clips up of someone scratching their nose 19 different ways. That's ridiculous. But one great shot of somebody scratching their nose pensively might sell. Human emotion is something that we don't see enough of in our library. So if I were a videographer, creator, DOP, I would be trying to capture a lot of human emotion in different contexts.
Okay.
So, because right now loneliness is a theme. One of the things that we're going to see from COVID-19 is a lot of mental health impact based on isolation. We're starting to see it already. People are willing to sacrifice or to take a risk in order to have freedom of association right now. That's happening today. And we're going to see more of that. Human emotion is so powerful. And I don't see enough of that in Blackbox. We see a lot of standard stuff that anybody could shoot coming on the platform. We see, I'm going to say 50% of what we see is easily replicable by anybody with a camera. Okay. I'm going to say that 40% of what we see is more highly crafted and specialized, and 10% of it is cream, like absolutely beautiful. A beautiful shot when you see one. I mean, it. That's what you should be emulating. That's your standard. You want to be as good as the guy or woman, as the person who made that shot that you think is amazing.
Okay, on that topic, with you saying that you want human emotion and that kind of thing, people are stuck at home, so they can play around. Use your kids, use your wife.
Use yourself, self-model.
But here's my question: is how well does normal people sell versus the model type, general kind of look that people use? People will go to agencies and rent 3 or 4 models for the day and shoot. But how well would somebody like me, for instance, sell versus somebody that's better looking or skinnier or fatter or whatever the story is? Have you seen any kind of trend?
If your shot is as well crafted as those studio model shoots, it could be better. You could make more sales. So my spies tell me that there is a move to authenticity with people shots, and that a lot more regular folks stuff is selling. So I can't say there's a guarantee that if you do this, that it's going to work. I mean, I've self-modeled a few times, and I've got a face for radio. I hate being on camera, but like it's even difficult for me to look at myself on this Zoom thing, frankly. But I like working behind the camera. But yes. Anything that I've done with self-modeling or even family members, for me, has done well if I crafted it correctly. So it's got to look good. It's got to look natural. Authenticity doesn't mean poor lighting.
Yes.
Authenticity means a believable image that people find pleasant and useful. So I'm sure you would do very well as a self-model, as long as you took a little anti-shine to your dome.
That's great.
You got to do those. You got to do those details, right? Like makeup, you still have to for models, you have to use makeup. That's all there is to it, or you're going to get hot spots. So if you don't know how to do that, and you're isolating, go take a YouTube course. Yes. Ordering some, like, this is my best friend ever. Okay, Neutrogena. I'm going to do a plug for Neutrogena Shine Control. Right.
Okay.
This is a lifesaver. This will save you so much hassle. If you have, and go to Amazon or wherever and get yourself several tubes of this with some sponges. I've got them right here. So you want to look more pro, 2 simple things you can do. Neutrogena Anti-Shine. There's another one from another company that I've used as well. Mac used to have a good one, but this is magic stuff, right? Here, I'll show you. Let's get crazy. What the hell? It's COVID-19. All right, so I've got a little bit of this here. You see how shiny my cheeks are?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have a mirror, so I'll probably mess this up.
Yeah, it's a huge difference.
See the difference?
Yeah. And tell me quickly something. Is it skin color bound? Is there darker?
No, it's transparent. It's translucent.
That's also, and on that topic, that's a good thing to keep in a camera bag, because especially if you're doing corporate headshots, often there's people with darker skin. They tend to be a lot more shinier than what pale skin people is. And you just sort of like dab this on and off they go. That's
if you're using colored pancake or tinted pancake, those people are not going to look natural.
Yeah.
Because you're altering their skin tone. You can't match it. It's almost impossible. I mean, I used to carry about a dozen compacts with me of powder when I was doing corporate work, and now I carry this. That's it. That's all I ever use. And it's so awesome, actually. Here's a cool thing that's off topic. I call this my CEO tamer. Okay? Because if you've got the high-priced help sitting in the chair for an interview or a shoot, all you have to do is this on their nose. And now you own them. They are going to be so much better behaved after that. And the other thing that I do, I ask them how they would like me to address them. And if they say first name, now I'm your friend. And if they say title, I know I have to be a little more careful.
Yes.
But it works perfectly. And I've been doing this for a long time. I'm going to tell you right now, like, it used to drive my makeup artists nuts when I said, I am going to do the nose. Okay. And they go, what are you doing? I go, no, I'm going to do the nose because I need that person. I need to own that person's personal space.
Yes.
And well, all you have to do, and you're done. Like, you're good.
I think going forward, that personal space is going to be different. You might have to get one of those barbecue tongs, those long ones,
Yeah.
you,
Or a lion tamer's chair sometimes. I've had a couple of live ones, that's for sure. But I'm going to tell you, 99% of people, it's totally predictable, right?
yeah.
That comes directly from a second-year social psychology course that I took when I was younger.
And also the mimicking body parts. If you look at how people stand and talk and dress, if you mimic the way that they speak,
Yes,
they feel more comfortable with you.
definitely.
And that again is where experience comes in. Now we're going completely off the black box topic, but it's interesting. Is experience coming in working with people.
It's all part of it, though.
Yes. So,
Is that you? Or me?
yeah, that's on my phone.
Okay.
So
Yeah, but you're right. So talent handling. Okay, but again, this is important. If you're working with talent and you don't have talent handling skills, partner with somebody that does.
yes.
This is where collaboration comes in, because the director has that skill set, and maybe the director is a horrible camera operator. So you want people doing what they're best at. It's not that they're not capable of doing the other thing. What are they best at? And you see this on film sets all the time. I mean, the grip does not touch the camera, and the camera operator does not adjust the lighting, right?
Yeah.
Period. And the director is over at Video Village, and it's pretty rare for a camera operator to come over to Video Village and say, oh, I think you should change the angle on that shot. That's what the DOP does. Okay, so, that's just the way it is. And so I think we're all, one of the things that happened through this millennial access to gear, new technology disruption that we were talking about earlier, is that people became convinced that they could do all of those jobs and that they should do all of those jobs. And that leads to mediocrity.
Yes.
Okay, that leads to average stuff, where you don't have somebody to back you up or to question you when you're doing the work. I mean, writing a script. Okay, so I'm going to write a screenplay and I'm going to shoot, direct, and act in my own movie. How good is that movie possibly going to be? It's going to be a piece of crap. I mean, like, it's just, you can't, there's very, very few people that can do that. I mean, it's just not the way this medium works. This medium has always been team-based, collaborative, specialty-driven thing. So yeah, I think it's too bad that, there's the odd rare person. I know a couple of people like this who can do it all and do it all, and they do it really well. But I'm going to tell you, 95% of people don't and shouldn't. And then they come back and they complain that their movie didn't sell or their stock clips don't move or all of that. And I can tell you why. You got a quality problem because you tried to do it all yourself. Sorry. I mean, that's just life. You got to make good stuff.
What's the market for editorial footage in the stock? What have you seen from your records on that side?
If you're using the editorial excuse to monetize otherwise non-commercial footage, you're making a mistake. It probably won't sell. But if it's newsworthy as it's supposed to be, then it sells a lot. So I wouldn't bother putting a street scene up as editorial unless it was obvious that it could be used as a storytelling element for a documentary, because that's the only place it's ever going to get used. Well, it might get picked up by a news outlet, but you got to think, who's buying it? Why are people buying editorial, right?
Yes.
They're buying editorial because they're making a documentary or a news report or some other form of media that doesn't require a release.
Okay.
That's the only reason.
So on the Blackbox future upgrades, what is there that you can give us a sneak peek on that might get people excited about what's coming?
Well, I don't know how excited people are going to get, because a lot of this is really just further development. So there's our revolutionary moves are going to come in 2021. So I can't talk about those. But we are doing 2 revolutionary things in 2021. They're on the roadmap. They're already in development, looking really good, very exciting. But sorry, that's top secret. So what we're doing this year is we're adding a much more robust collaboration engine that allows you to do short form. So our big push this year is on, well, we have several pushes going on. We're looking to attract higher quality content at ingest, and we're looking to help our members understand that they need to concentrate on quality. So that's a big mission for us this year. We really embarked on that probably around last October, November timeframe. And that's when we started to see changes in the market. That's when we started to see different behaviors from stock agencies. Okay. And a lot of that is stuff that it's hard to discuss publicly because we have special relationships with our market partners, and we are not in a position to discuss a lot of the things that are moving the market right now. The number one thing, and this comes from the top, this comes from the customer and from the agency, quality is an imperative, period. I'm saying it again and again and again and again. Quality is going to drive market expansion for stock footage, period. Because day of commodified footage that looks the same as 379 other shots is gone. Okay, don't waste your time. It's just gone.
And you guys have also invested quite a bit of effort on that side, or on the Blackbox side, is to curate the clips in better. Because I know that every Tom, Dick and Harry with a cell phone in hand is wanting to shoot stock footage of their cat at the moment. So yeah, I can definitely see that. And you also put heavily on the groups as well.
I'm not going to tell people not to take stock footage of their cat, but if they take stock footage of their cat, it better be super high quality stock footage of their cat.
Yes.
Okay? Average is not going to do it anymore. It's just not happening, and we see it all. But there's always the detractor that goes, "Wait, I put a crappy clip up and I sold it." And I'm going, "Yeah, okay, that's fine. But did you sell it 127 times? Don't think so." We have a lot of clips on our platform that have sold 100+ times. Okay. Those are the clips you want to make, because you're going to make $1,000 to $3,000 per clip over a period of time. That's a huge return on your time investment in doing this work. But if you're going to take the easy route, walk back in your garden or wherever, or the park, and shoot squirrels and seagulls all day long, well, sorry, you're not going to make your day rate doing that. That's impossible.
Yeah, but you also, if you, and again, it comes down to the know your subject thing again, is that if you sit there long enough shooting your squirrels and your seagulls, you might have that one day that's lucky with a fantastic interactions but then again, it doesn't mean that you need to upload all those
exactly
15-hour, 20-second clips. Wait
Absolutely. That's like a documentary maker. Here's the analogy. Documentary makers often end up with really high shooting ratios, 100 to 1. So 100 hours of footage or more to a 1-hour doc. Okay. Do they make a 100-hour doc?
No.
Of course not. They make a 1-hour doc. So don't fall in love with all the puppies in the litter. Okay. You can only take one puppy. Silly analogy, but I'm the son of a veterinarian. So, don't fall in love with the puppies. I mean, you can't have them all. You're not allowed. And you can't anymore because there are upload limits on one of the big agencies. And we've instituted upload limits, and they are working.
Yes.
Okay. They are working. It's a good strategy.
I've had somebody ask in the comments if Blackbox is only about video, and if they are planning on doing photos at a later stage, stock photos.
No, I'll tell you why. Photos is a lone wolf. Photo is a lone wolf environment, which is highly commodified, past the point of it offering any value to us.
Okay.
And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but photo is a different art form. Photo is a lone pursuit for the most part. It's DIY from shutter to post-production. Most great photographers do their own post. There's no collaboration per se in that pursuit, and we're all about collaboration. So and I'm a video person, video/film guy. So we are much more likely to head into music and e-gaming than we are to head into photo.
Okay. And for people that's looking for a collaborator, what should they look for? Because I'm sitting in South Africa, I'm shooting South African based content, or Australia or Russia or wherever the story is, but your curator that you get for that, he doesn't know the area or anything like that to give it the correct keywords that's relevant to that. What have you got any advice on that front?
I think, most of the times when people are looking for a curator, whether they go through the Facebook group or through the marketplace, and by the way, the marketplace is getting a total rework. So that's really going to change hugely in the next little while. Sorry, guys, I'm going to have to send an email out. I've got a bit of an urgent thing because we're running over time. So I'm going to take care of that right now. If you want to take the mic for a minute, I will attend to you in 2 seconds.
Please.
Real-time stuff here.
Yeah.
And I will address the question. Okay, so curator relationships. They're exactly the same as any other relationship you would have professionally. Okay, so you need to go through a process of determining if that person is right for you. You can do a test phase with a limited number of clips if you're doing stock. You got to look into them, look into their background. This is important. You're going to be partnering on this process. We can't control everybody on the platform. Okay, so we can't certify every single person on this platform. So you have to do some of that work too. We're the connecting point, but we're not the certification body. So if someone contacts you from Kuala Lumpur or wherever, you have to vet them. You say, okay, great. Send me your resume, send me some references, send me your work. Have you worked for other people? Have you curated for other members? Can I contact them? All of that. And that leads to a more reliable thing. There are two other innovations that we didn't get to talk about. So the first one is a better collaboration engine, but the second one is a rating system. So we're actually, and this is very complex stuff. Like this is hard software to write. Collaboration is really hard to write. So we're very proud of what we've done. And anybody who's a software coder knows that collaborative software is one of the most difficult things to write. It's like in cinematography, shooting a dining room scene is one of the hardest scenes to shoot because you have so many variables and exceptions. So collaboration is hard, but rating systems are really hard because they have to be fair and they have to be reliable. And the whole idea here is not to constrain creators, it's actually to free them. So we have to be very careful as we develop those products. The third thing that we're doing this year that's very important that we've already started, early days, okay, is our YouTube and Facebook channels. Okay, so we are actually publishing Blackbox created short films on our animal channel and soon our real life stories channel, which should have a significant amount of COVID-19 related material. So that's a huge shift for us, entering short form social channels not away from stock footage, but in addition to stock footage. And that is the first step for us to get into long form, because within 2 to 5 years, we will be supporting feature film and series production with this platform. Mark my word, it's going to happen.
Fantastic.
So it's very exciting. And that was the original intent of the platform. You know, as with any other entrepreneur, I thought I could do it in a year. Well, you know, that's not realistic. So we have to go slow, be realistic, make sure that we get things right. And, but I got to tell you, like, you know, for a platform with 55,000 registered members, not all active, a lot dormant, and that's with any platform. But we have had, to this date, fewer than 10 what I would call disputes, okay? Whether it's between members or between a member and me, because I am the face of the platform. But this platform is a real wonder. It's a real wonder from the social perspective. Because what we've done is we've brought people who are, I think creators are all the same, whether, notwithstanding your specialty or your talent set or your skill set. I think creators are generally intelligent, kind, generous, hardworking, collaborative, honest people. And this is what sets us apart in society, actually. And when we are beholden to a financial reality that's based on gig and contract and copyright ownership by the client, that removes a huge chunk of our essence and a huge chunk of our being. And my intention with Blackbox was to create an ecosystem where we can be, and we are creators. And creators function best within an ecosystem of honesty, trust, intelligence, inventiveness, creativity, all of those virtues. And wow, does that ever sound idealistic? Well, I believe it. I actually believe it. And the more we do this, the more I believe it. Because we don't have people fighting in our platform. We don't have any disputes. Yeah, I mean, something's going to happen sooner or later, and we don't know how severe the dispute will be, but something will happen. But we're ready to deal with that because we built this based on those core values and that philosophy. And that's not going to change as long as I'm sitting in the CEO chair for this company. I promise you that.
Okay, fantastic. I've got just 2 questions here. One that I wanted to ask you as well. I think we should start wrapping this up. You've still got the day ahead, and
I'm running out of power on the laptop here too, so I've got about 2 or 3 minutes.
So start getting ready for supper and everything. Andrew Averly, he said hi. Good friend of mine. I had him on yesterday on the chat. He asked, is online gaming a market? Online gaming, is it the market option at all?
Absolutely it is, but it's not going to happen fast.
Okay, but how would that, just brief explanation, how would that work if for online gaming?
Right now, online gamers, online gaming creators, the people who make the games, design the games, do all of the work on the games, it's really no different than making a Netflix show. They've been divided into small groups of subcontractors and individual workers who are working for a gig fee, often hourly, and they don't have the ability to retain the ownership of the work that they do or get any back-end payment if the title is a hit. It's controlled by large institutions. We don't know where Twitch is going to go yet, but Twitch is definitely a ray of light. And it's the same in the music business. I mean, music, you don't make any money off of recordings anymore. Nobody makes any money off of recordings. People aren't making any money off streaming. It's a joke. It's a total joke. And the only way musicians make money now is through merch and live performance. And that's it. So you can build a brand for sure using streaming, but it's become a promotional vehicle more than anything else. And so the way I see gaming is virtually the same idea. You can bring a group of creators together to create a product. And so it's the same as anything else. You bring a group of creators together to make a product. You make the product, you co-own it, you go to market, you find an audience, you generate revenue, and you split the revenue commensurate with your ownership of the copyright. Real simple stuff, but it's not a market that we're ready to enter yet.
So for instance, I would, if I'm a game designer, I would create a character that will, like a G.I. Joe guy, and build him out, and then somebody would buy that character for the game and use it onwards, and I will keep getting royalties.
No. We're not talking about doing game elements. We're talking about doing games.
Oh, okay.
So,
then the other question I had was affiliate links.
Sorry, I missed that.
Affiliate links. I know that you had somebody could use a code that I had on my site, give it to them, they sign up with that, and I get like a affiliate fee coming from them. Is that? I know you guys stopped that for a while. Are you still working on that, or is it up again? Or?
We're working on a new way to do it. So just like any other company, when you're starting and you're growing, a lot of companies use referral and affiliate programs to grow their base. We were no different than any other company, and we had to examine it from a perspective of longevity. So we're going to be coming back with a modified plan, and that's going to happen, within this quarter, I think. COVID-19 came along and knocked us off the rails a little bit, as you can well imagine, just like any other company or entity. So we're really focusing on getting the company and getting the platform where we need it to be in terms of quality and our ability to welcome new members, because we have a lot of interest, as you can well imagine, with so many creators being thrown out of work. So we are carefully managing ingest of talent and ingest of content. And that's our biggest deal right now. Plus, we want to release the 3.0 version of the platform as soon as we can. And so a lot of that was slowed down. There was uncertainty with the agencies. Some of that has been dealt with so far. The market is in flux. This is not, anybody that thinks that the digital media market is predictable in any shape or form has got rocks in their heads. This is a very fluid and dynamic space. And again, our job is not to manage the industry or the market. Our job is to respond to the industry and the market to the best of our ability, with creator value in mind. So that's what drives us. And yes, we're a business, and we can't be running around losing money. So that means that our lifetime would be limited, and we're not going to do that. We're experienced business people, and we're in this for the long run. And our goal, again, I'll say it again, it sounds like a slogan, it's creator freedom and creator value. And it's happiness, call it love. It's love, Oh,
well, it's interesting times that we live in, and if it wasn't for guys like Blackbox that bring this kind of thing together, because I know we had a portfolio on each of the stock sites, and to manage all of them is just a mission. Just going through Blackbox it just simplifies this whole process so much. Even if you do it by yourself, if you just do 10 videos a month or whatever, it's just so much easier than doing each individual one on its own.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that. And that's really one of the core functionalities that we have. But it's let's just put it this way: in a year or two or three, you're going to look at that and just say, that's just a given, right? Like we solved a problem that I had. Necessity is the mother of invention. So I was shooting. I was a producer, director, shooter, exec, and shooting for me was really my passion, hobby. that I could make money from. So I didn't work as a DOP because that wasn't my role in the production. But I'm a pretty good shooter, and I shoot for myself, and that gave me great pleasure, especially because I did wildlife. But I discovered myself that I hated all of the gyrations that I had to go through to get to market. And then the idea just bloomed from there and said, okay, well, yeah, it's an uploader service, but it's also a collaboration service, and it's a distribution service, and it's a revenue split service. So those are the core things that we do. But as we move along, we are going to be offering a lot more value. So, you know, if folks stick around and stay with us as we develop, they're going to see more value as time goes on. And, you know, so far it's really going well. I mean, it's just great. And I've met so many wonderful people, and we've gelled a community in a way like you just don't see this, you know, like you go on these Facebook groups and there's a lot of trolls and flamers and garbage going on. We don't see that within our community. Well, mainly because we moderate our group to avoid that stuff. Some people call that censorship, which I categorically disagree with. It's moderation, period, because we have social norms that we're trying to maintain within our community, and that we need to do that through some rules. So no, we're not into anarchy, and we won't allow trolls to control our agenda. If you want to see what trolls have to say about us, go on Reddit. I mean, there's tons of garbage out there. And I just don't even pay attention to it. I mean, I don't even look. I don't care.
As soon as people start posting about you, you know you're doing something right.
Well, yeah, that old thing about some press is better than no press or bad press. But in the social world out there, it's certainly got a lot more challenging to control your public message. And so we're just very clear, you know, it's like Blackbox isn't for everybody. Lots of people come on the platform and then they say, look, this isn't for me. And I go, fine, you know, good luck. If it's not working for you, then you have other alternatives, and you have lots of other options.
Yeah.
So we're interested in developing the value part of this thing, where people do find it valuable and people are part of the community. Because I will say that most of the negatives and negs, I call people negs, most of the negs are people who are just looking for a margin increase as a lone wolf operator. And that's all they want. And we're probably the wrong platform for that. You know, because of the nature of our business, you're going to pay us something, right? And then there's a lot of misunderstandings about our 15% commission. It's actually 6 on gross, not 15, when you look at it from a gross sale perspective. And we actually are able to, we're able to offer higher commissions overall because of our relationships with our distribution partners. And those are confidential. So you would have to do a detailed comparison on revenue with and without Blackbox, but I've already run the numbers and it's roughly the same. So you kind of get our service for free when you run the numbers at the end of the day. It's a wash, but the negs love to drag you down into these, you know, these crazy arguments where they want transparency and truth. And I'm sorry, we run a business and we're not able to discuss certain things in details because of confidentiality agreements. And if you don't like that, well, that's, you know, that's okay. But, you know, we do get accused of being things that we are not.
Well, just the feature that you guys distribute, it's a single upload process and distributes that.
Yeah.
To me personally, that alone is worth the 15% that you guys take off the sale.
But at the end of the day, it's not really costing you that, because.
Yeah, but whatever it is, just that is more than enough value to me to use the platform.
So you're right. And as you say, if that were the case, it was just a straight 15% and that's all there is to it, and there were no nuances behind that in terms of the pricing, then I do believe that it's worth it. And if you don't believe it's worth it, then don't use our service, right?
Yes.
Because we're very upfront. You know, it is what it is. This is what we have to charge. And that's all there is to it. I mean, we just had a bad situation happen with indie film where a distributor basically went bankrupt in LA because they weren't running their business in a responsible way. They weren't making enough money to do the service. Yeah. And they folded, and a lot of people got hurt. That's not going to happen with Blackbox. I'm a much better businessman than but again, Pat does not have billionaire in his future because I'm a creator, man. Like this is, I'm doing this, you know, as a business, but I really am doing it because I love what I do, and I want to be able to help other creators. So, you know, but it's not a charity, no, it's a business, and that's fine. Anyways, I'm running out of battery now. So
yeah, there's two questions here now. We've answered both of them.
Okay.
SVOD platforms pay to create and filmmakers once. How would Blackbox make it passive income in the future? Just that the clips will keep on selling. If you've got good content, it will keep on selling. And the other one is, will Blackbox be focused more towards, I presume it's TV on demand platforms with short films and features? So I presume that's like YouTube. And
yes. We are, our responsibility is to find the best gateway for most value, right? So if we're involved with a feature film and the best value is to do a deal with a big platform, we'll do that. If the best opportunity is to do OTT, we'll do that. If it's to do AVOD, we'll do that. Or we might do a combination of the above. So we're finding our way. We are a community, but again, okay, when you look at the whole thing about what's the pie look like, okay, so you've got a pie and you've got how many slices in the pie? A distributor can be part of the pie.
Yes.
A sales agent can be part of the pie. A lawyer can be part of the pie. An accountant can be part of the pie. So every single person involved in the value chain from ideation to audience uptake can be part of the pie. And eventually we might even have a business model where the audience is part of the pie.
Fantastic. All right, Pat, I think we need to wrap this up.
Yeah.
It's been, you've been the longest chat I've had so far, and it's been really interesting.
Well, I'm not surprised. I like to talk.
Thanks for coming to join me. It's been a pleasure to have you on, and I'm very positive about the future is that we've got with people like you and Blackbox and all that kind of stuff.
Well, thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure, and thank you for being a member, a longtime member, first of all, and thank you for, you know, being one of the guys that gets it and embraces you know, what we're trying to do. I really appreciate that.
Only a pleasure. Pat, thank you so much. Have a fantastic day further, and yeah, like you say, keep waiting outside.
Okay, awesome. Have a great day.
Right. Thank you, Pat.
Bye.
Bye-bye.